and then we will proceed. Today I have assisting me our CFO, Noel, who will be our official counter. The CAO, Jim, will also be assisting, and so will Mark O'Coin today. This is the process we will be following today. So I will declare nominations open for the position of chair for the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen. Each nomination will require one nominator. The member nominated will be asked if they are willing to let their name stand for the position. Then I will call for additional nominations until after 3 calls, there are no further nominations from the floor. Once nominations close, nominees will be allowed up to 3 minutes to present their platform to the board in order of nomination. Each member shall have 1 vote, and each vote to have equal weight. At this moment, I'll just stop and explain that we do have 3 directors online, and as per our procedure bylaw, they are allowed to vote. They will be providing me with their choices, and so if you see me filling in 3 ballots, that is why I will be doing that. A simple majority of the board of directors is required to elect a chair. Should there be more than 2 nominees for the position, and if on the first ballot a chair is not elected by the majority of the board, the nominee with the lowest number of votes shall be dropped and a second ballot will be initiated. This process will continue until a member is elected. In the event of a tie vote on the last ballot, the election shall be determined by the flip of a coin, and I do have a toonie available if that should happen. Following the vote, the corporate officer will announce the name of the chair resulting from the secret ballot. Unsuccessful candidates for chair are eligible to stand for vice chair if nominated. Following the election of the chair, the corporate officer shall conduct the election of the vice chair with the same rules. Following the election of a vice chair, the corporate officer shall turn the meeting over to the chair to proceed with the remainder of the agenda. Nominations are now open for the position of the RDOS chair. Director Taylor?
Yeah, I'll nominate Mark Pendergraft.
Director Pendergraft, do you accept?
Yes.
Are there any more nominations? For a second time, I will ask, are there any more nominations for the position of chair of the RDOS? And for a third and final time, are there any further nominations for the position of chair of the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen? There being no further nominations, by acclamation, Director Pendergraft is the chair of the RDOS. Okay, so with that first being closed, we will now move on to the election of vice chair. Same rules. So I open the floor up. Are there any nominations for the position of vice chair?
I nominate Director Watt.
Director Watt, do you accept the nomination?
Thank you, I would.
For the second time, are there any further nominations for the position of vice chair of the RDOS? And for a third and final time, are there any further nominations for the position of vice chair of the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen? Sorry, I didn't look online. Nobody online? Okay. All right. Well, then I declare this ballot closed, and by acclamation, Director Watt is our vice chair. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your support, and we will continue on with the board meeting. We have a proposed agenda. We also have the consent agenda, which we have an opportunity to remove something off of. If you want to discuss that in the regular portion of the board meeting, now would be the time to do that. I'm not seeing any hands for that, so looking for a motion to approve the agenda as proposed. Moved, seconded, thank you. All in favor? That looks carried, but I'll check. Is there anybody opposed? It is approved. Down to the consent agenda, corporate issues. Looking for a motion on that one. Moved, thank you. Seconder, great. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. That brings us down to development services, a building bylaw infraction in Area E, and I'll turn it over to the CAO.
Thank you, Chair. Purpose of this report is to seek direction from the Regional District Board regarding enforcement against the property owners of 6447 Shoot Lake Road in regards to the construction of multiple dwelling units and accessory buildings without a building permit. The recommended motion is on your screen, and staff is here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, I will go to Director Federico. Direction on this one?
Thank you, through the chair. I'd like to move alternative number 2, which is just to place a notice of deficiency on the folio and abandon further enforcement action.
Okay, so you're moving the alternative. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded. It's on the floor. Discussion on it? Or questions, comments? Director Taylor, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if Director can provide some explanation as to the thinking behind the alternate.
I'll go to Director Federico.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. There is a lot happening on this property, agreed, and I think that we do still need to continue to work with the home owner, the parcel owner, on what is taking place. A December 6th timeline puts them fairly into our cold time, which would be unfair as there are quite a few on that parcel that potentially could find themselves unhoused. And looking at where we're going and our current climate for unhoused in our area, I don't think that putting this undue hardship on this community of people at this point in time is something that would be fair to them. And I have a few notes on that. We also, in terms of the containers, which is the stop work order on there, I think we have some work to do regarding that. We have other containers that are in the community that are also in a process with building and going through building code and needing structural engineers. I found out that to get a structural engineer to come out to look at shipping containers when you've just put some holes and put them together is a $10,000 a day cost, which is again an undue hardship that this family would not be able to sustain a price tag like that. And then to be able to put the time and effort on our staff who don't have this capacity at the moment to then have to go through a court process, it's just funding that right now. I don't think the RD needs to be spending. So this family, as you can see, is willing to work. They've been coming in and they've been forthcoming with staff. So it's not that they're evading this at all. And I just feel that there's some more time to continue to work with them. And doing that in the middle of the winter is not really an appropriate time to be doing that.
Okay, follow up, Director Taylor, go ahead.
Yeah, just I guess follow up to staff. I had a concern with the wording regarding the December 6th component of the motion as well. Although I agree, I like the first half of the motion about putting a notice on title. So I guess I'm wondering to staff, are you really looking for compliance with the building bylaw by December 6th? Or are you looking for movement in an effort to achieve compliance?
Yeah. So we would be looking for a building permit application, which would be efforts towards making compliance. So we've been working on this for a long time. So at some point we have to draw the line, bring it to the board for direction.
One more question,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So all you're looking for is an application for a building permit by December 6th.
Yeah. To make
Okay.
those structures lawful.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, before I go to any more questions on the board, I understand the owner and applicant is in the room and they do have an opportunity to address the board. So now would be the time to do that if you can step forward. No, no worries. The little button in the center of the console, push that, and if the green light comes on, you're ready to go.
Okay. Is this close enough? Yeah. Hi, my name is Heidi Rasmussen, and I'm here with my mother, Nancy Rasmussen, and we're the landowners of 6447 Shoot Lake Road. I've been told that I have 10 minutes. I will not take that, but just so that I don't have to rush myself at this moment. So today I'm speaking on behalf of my family so the board can make a fair and informed decision on how to vote for our file. If the board votes for option 1, placing a notice on title and injunctive action, it will put us under extreme financial strain and hinder our ability to continue our plans to build homes compliant with bylaws on the land that we love. Our request is that the board instead consider choosing option 3. Sorry. Do not proceed with enforcement action on our file. This would give us the time we need to take the next steps through the duration of the TUP as we planned. When we purchased the land, we were first-time landowners, and we went through every step laid out in the development process, from obtaining all required development permits, including the environmentally sensitive permit, to hiring professionals for installing power, water, and septic systems. It's okay. Sorry. Septic systems properly and in accordance with regulations. We did this with the full intention of building our homes in line with the BC Building Code and RDOS bylaws. In late 2021, like many small business owners, we faced significant financial difficulties and were no longer in a position to begin building at that time. This led us to look for temporary housing on the land while we stabilized our business. When we were first approached by the RDOS staff in October 26, 2023 regarding the temporary housing, we came to the office in person and were advised to seek building permits. We then hired professionals to prepare the drawings, and on December 13th, we brought our building applications in and were then informed that these were not actually an available option for the temporary structures and that the actual correct path would be the TUP. This felt a little confusing as we were previously advised to seek building permits, and as I said, we spent money to do this. However, to remain in compliance and move forward, we took the next advised step and applied for and paid for the TUP process. And on July 25th, the RDOS Board voted to approve it. We were relieved to receive the TUP, as we understood this meant we could continue living in our temporary housing for its duration of 3 years. Based on all communications so far and TUP approval, we believe the TUP was required authorization for our situation. Then 9 months later, after approval, we received a letter stating we required building permits for the temporary structures. This came as a surprise, as it had never been made clear to us during or after the TUP process that this would still be necessary. From our prior communication, we believed we were in compliance. The TUP itself states this is not a building permit and includes specific conditions and timeframes. However, it does not specify, and we were not otherwise advised, that separate building permits would be required for temporary structures under the approved TUP. As we understood it, we had 3 years to figure out our situation. Because our living arrangement has always been temporary, we are now taking reasonable, financial, responsible steps towards preparing the property for future building. We're in discussion with a local builder, engineer, and architect to move toward building a building permit for permanent homes when feasible. We recognize that the RDOS has an important public responsibility to uphold bylaws and also its core values, which are honesty, accountability, transparency, and customer experience. We simply ask the members voting today to see the broader context of our situation, that it's not an act of intentional noncompliance, but a situation where the process and requirements were not clearly outlined enough early for us to make informed decisions. Had we been aware of these requirements at the start of the TUP, we would have made different choices to avoid the difficult position we find ourselves in today. We recommend the recommended voting option to place the section notice on title as well as injunctive action. We believe this measure would be disproportionate to our circumstance and would have lasting consequence for us as landowners and small business owners trying to recover financially. A notice on title could make it difficult for us to obtain a mortgage or refinancing and can also affect our ability to secure insurance, which is a major concern because we live in a fire-prone area. We respectfully believe that voting for this option would make it harder, not easier, for us to achieve compliance. What we're asking for is time and understanding. Our request is that the board choose option 3, do not proceed with enforcement. This would allow us to focus our limited resources during the remainder of our TUP on getting back on our feet and preparing for the next stages as planned for our build permanent homes. Thank you for your time, and we appreciate your consideration.
Okay, thank you for the
Thanks.
brief presentation. I'll just check with the board if they have any questions for you. I see a couple of hands. I'll start with Director Bloomfield and then Director Gettins.
Thank you. Actually, I've got a question for staff, so I can wait until
Yeah,
after
okay, that's best if we do that. If they're for questions for staff, we'll hold them. If they're for the applicant, we will ask them now. Director Barkwell, go ahead.
I guess it's not a question. Maybe I should wait until
Okay,
all questions have been answered. Yeah.
Director Monteith.
Thank you. Through the chair, what is your expected timeline to actually start building on the property? And
Our hope is by the end of what the TUP was, which was July 2027, the three-year term.
and sorry, just to
Follow up, go ahead.
If earlier, we'd love to, but it takes a bit of time.
And what sort of housing are you looking to build?
We're looking at single-family housing. That's a log home that we're going to be building, single floor, enough that both my mama and I can live in it. Yeah, I'm not sure what else.
Okay, no problem. Any other questions for the applicant? Director Taylor, and go ahead.
Just wondering what you've got in terms of sewer, water, and hydro, and how that's
Yeah,
looked on, and whether that was done with
yeah.
appropriate permits.
Yeah, and that was all part of when we had the TUP process approval. So we have our power through Fortis, and we have interior health approved septic, and everything is in line with that.
Okay. Director Graham, you had a question as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, through chair. How many people live on this parcel?
So there's 4 dwellings that were approved. Well, 3, but 1 storage unit. So it's myself and my mother, and then my brother and his partner.
Okay. Any other questions? Not seeing any. Thank you very much for the presentation. We will deal with it. You're welcome to sit back in the gallery, please. And I'll ask staff to come up as there was some questions for them. And I'll go to Director Bloomfield to start. Go ahead.
Thank you. And through the chair, I'd just like to talk a little bit about notice on title versus notice on the folio file. So notice on title, yeah, that in my experience would affect the ability to finance, and financing may be a key element in getting the project launched on the property. On a folio file, if there's a notice of deficiencies on the folio file, would that come up in a file search by a prospective buyer for the property? Would that show up to the buyer on that inquiry?
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, if the buyer came into the RDOS and searched the file, then they would receive notification. We'd also send a letter to the homeowners indicating the non-conformance. So it would satisfy, in a sense, our duty to notify the owners, and we'd have clear documentation that we did that.
Yeah. So I think a notice, and if it's the intent of the notice on title is to alert any future buyers on the property that there's deficiencies, which looking at the pictures, I think would be immediately evident anyway. But so if it's about protecting future buyers, then I think the folio file might be a satisfactory response. The notice on title would affect their ability. I think if financing was an option for them, or if that was what they wanted to do, it might be a little bit too heavy-handed from our perspective right now, especially when there's a TUP in place already.
As far as the abandoning further enforcement, I'm kind of up in the air on that one right now. I'll listen to what my fellow directors say.
Okay. Director Gettens, go ahead.
Thanks to the chair. Similar on that too. I think that aligning the timing with the TUP to the 27th, I think that does make good sense, and good job speaking that. I know it's always hard. So I'm with that too. And I'm not sure about abandoning further enforcement, because I agree with Director Federico that there's a lot of work and change that's coming that that might impact this. But if we abandon that potential now, then we can't go back to this. But the July 27th TUP, that timeline, giving them the time they thought they had, whether it was misunderstanding or not, it was the request of the applicant. So I can definitely support that. I don't really want to see, for the same reasons that Director Bloomfield said, things go untitled. But if you're open to that, I can definitely support that, unless we have more information about why we should abandon any further. Because to me, abandoning enforcement means we abandon the conversation. And I don't know that we should do that.
Okay. I had Director Barkwell and then Director Coyne.
Yeah, my thoughts were along the abandon, whether the word abandon, whether defer wouldn't be a better word, but that would require a motion to amend the motion, and I'll just wait and see what the feeling is on that.
Okay, Director Coyne Jr.
I was just gonna say, why don't we just amend it so that we give them till summer or whatever to get their stuff in order, and then if they don't have it done by then bylaw can go back up there and check. I don't see a problem with that. I mean, I agree with Director Bloomfield about the note on the folio, but not on the title, and so that they can get the financing and whatnot. But I think it makes a big difference if we let them and they think that they're following the process, and we help them through that instead of hindering them at this point.
Okay. Go ahead, Director Bloomfield.
Quick question for staff. If we move to defer, don't we need a date to defer to?
Yes,
so.
you do.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Go ahead, Director Federico.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So we have either a motion to completely defer it to a later date, or we have an amendment. I'm okay with either. I just don't feel that the December 6th timeline is a reasonable timeline. So I'm open to either on that, just to be able to provide them that extra time. Also, there's conversation in there about whether we defer or put the further enforcement action, or not further enforcement, but delay it till when their TUP is completed. So again, I'm just looking from where the board stands on what that timeline looks like.
Okay, Director Bloomfield.
Thank you. And I'll chime in, as it is a corporate vote. So,
It is.
but I would move to amend the motion to strike out the word abandon and put in defer until the end of the TUP period.
Okay, so there's a motion to amend and it's been seconded. And I'm sure the corporate officer has gotten that. Any discussion on the amendment? Not seeing any hands. So I will call the question on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment?
What's being typed up there is by removing the word further. It should be removing the word abandon.
Okay, we'll get that corrected before we remove the word abandon. Yeah.
And then defer until the end of the TUP period.
Defer till the TUP expires. Okay. So just so everybody's clear on what we're voting on, the amendment, go ahead, Director Monteith.
Thank you. I hate to do I guess a clarification, but it might need to read the current TUP. Right, because you can come in for a TUP extension, and then where this just goes on and ever, forever, my friend.
Yeah. That's a friendly amendment. We would consider that, I think. Just so it's clear what we're talking about, the current TUP. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you through the chair. I'm just wondering if we should include the expiration date of the TUP, and that clarifies which TUP we're reflecting.
There's only one TUP.
Yeah, I think there's only the one, but current, I think, captures that. It's a good suggestion, though. Okay, so on the amendment, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? The motion or the amended part carries. Now to the main motion, which will read, if we could bring that down, that a notice of deficiency be placed on the folio, and that we will defer enforcement until the TUP expires, current TUP expires. Director Taylor.
Question for staff.
Absolutely.
Are there other aspects of the TUP that we're not in compliance with on this issue?
So the TUP was issued for RVs, I believe, 4 RVs. And the tiny homes wouldn't satisfy the RV recreational standards or CSA. It's in a bit of a gray area with the state to a certain degree. We've discussed it before when they're built on wheels versus permanent foundations, but it's in general compliance. I think I would be willing to make that statement.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? Not seeing any hands, so calling the question on the motion as amended. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. Moving on to Public Works. Updated resolution for the SPF capacity building application, CAO.
I believe that there's a closed session.
Oh, it's not, I absolutely missed it. It's on the next one. So we are potentially having a closed portion. Here it is. That in accordance with section 91E, G, I, and K of the Community Charter, the board closed the meeting to the public on the basis of the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements if the board considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the regional district, and litigation or potential litigation affecting the regional district, and the receipt of advice that is the subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages, and that, in the view of the board, could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the regional district if they were held in public. So looking for a motion to go in camera on that basis. Moved, seconded, thank you. All in favor? Great. Any opposed? That motion carries. So I will ask the CAO to Okay, thank you, Adam. We're ready to start again. So item F on our agenda, Development Services APC meeting schedule. Over to the CAO. Or corporate officer, agenda, or our schedule for APCs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So before you have a proposed 2026 meeting schedule for electoral area advisory planning commissions. The recommended motion is that the Board of Directors accept the 2026 APC meeting schedule for the electoral area advisory planning commissions.
Okay, so looking for a motion for that. Moved, seconded, thank you. All in favor? Great. Any opposed? That motion carries, or did you have a question on it?
I had a comment for staff.
Oh, still can make it.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like some support from staff. If we move something to the APC, can we not have to wait like potentially 3 weeks or a month? Can we somehow work on getting it potentially to the APC the next week, if that's when they're meeting. Because that hasn't been the norm.
Yeah.
Sometimes we've had to wait like over a month.
Okay, we'll see how that can work, or if it can work. Next up, Director Coyne.
I just wanted clarification that that was a rural vote according to the agenda, and there was municipal directors voting at the same time, so I just want to make sure it was all kosher.
Go to the CO.
It's a rural vote.
Yes. There was a few extra hands, but it had no opposition. No worries. I should have clarified that myself too. Public Works, update resolution for the SPF capacity building application. Over to the CAO.
I'll forward this to staff to discuss. Alan?
Go ahead, Alan.
Chair, so as the board is aware, we've applied for 4 grants to the UBCM program. 3 essentially are infrastructure projects. One's more related to planning. UBCM came back to us and said, actually, we'd like a revised resolution for the 3 capital infrastructure projects. So that came back to the board, I believe, last meeting or 2 meetings ago. And then subsequently, they actually came back once again and said, actually, we'd also like that revised resolution for the planning project. So that's what we've come back to the board with today, just getting the proper resolution back to UBCM related to the planning grant application.
Okay, so looking for a motion for this. Moved, thank you. Seconded, perfect. Any discussion? Director Gettens, go ahead.
Thank you to the chair. I'm just curious because this is pretty new. Like it came back last time, like you said, for the capital grant applications in this one. Is there any context provided as to why they're looking for this extra assurance?
Go ahead.
You know, it's for us, it was a bit of a surprise because when they came back the first time, they specifically excluded the planning application because it's not capital infrastructure. It's not large dollars in comparison. But regardless, they did come back after the fact and said they would like this additional assurance. I think, you know, generally speaking to what the resolution, revised resolution speaks to, I think they're just trying to add clarity. If the projects came in and they were over budget over what grant funding we were approved for, we would have to cover that anyways, but I think they're just looking to add that clarity.
Okay. Go to Director Coyne.
I'll just make the motion. It's standard. All the grants are coming back right now. If you don't have that in it, you have to change your motion to include it. So I'll make the motion.
Moved, seconded, thank you. It's already there, but any other discussion? Not seeing any hands. Call the question. All in favor? Great. Any opposed? That motion carries. Down to finance, H1, gas tax for digital speed reader boards, CAO.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to authorize a change in the funding of $22,626 for the digital speed reader board project for the Rural G area project, reserved for Area G funded from the Area G Community Works gas tax. Staff is here to answer questions and the staff recommendations on the screen.
I'll go to Director Roberts. Direction on this?
Thank you through the chair. Yes, I support the motion. With the increase in price over the span of time discussing with Modi, it became apparent that my little store away for it wasn't enough. So,
okay, moved, seconded. Thank you. Any further discussion, Director Taylor?
I just like this brought up with Mott, that their list of acceptable suppliers could be updated and could result in some significant cost savings. And, you know, to my way of thinking, these signs are their responsibility. We're going ahead and doing it because they're not. The least they could do is give us a current list of providers that's lower priced.
Okay, Director Coyne?
I don't know who to direct this to, but I don't understand why something that we're gonna own and we're gonna put up and we're gonna maintain has to now fit some requirement from Mott. because it's not theirs, it's ours. We're putting it up just to, you know, it's like any other sign on the side of the road. So now all of a sudden we have to buy from their prescribed buyers or their prescription, whatever the heck it is, their list of buyers. Like we buy them in the municipalities and they're a heck of a lot cheaper than this. And we can put them up anywhere we want. I don't understand it. I don't know who to ask that question to though.
I'm gonna go to the CAO first and see.
So we have asked that question. We're waiting for a response because not only are we having to wait to get an authorization for the signs, and by the way, within the regional district, there's 5 signs. Like we've got grants for 5, not 100%. And also we're having trouble getting authorization to dig and put them in the ground. And that's holding it up. And we're talking about schools for the majority of those signs. So we do have meetings set up with the MOT, and I'm hoping to get a response at that time.
Okay, Director Roberts.
Thank you to the chair. That's been part of my frustration. You know, I got on this early enough last spring to be ahead to, you know, for the summer season, plus dealing with schools and the speeds that we have during the period of time that starts really around the end of May, where we're seeing the increase in tourist driving in trucks. And at that time, their prescribed numbers was 50% less. And then they dragged and dragged. And every time we went and checked, and then staff gets told by MOT that now it's going to cost twice as much. You know, and I initially put in for those 2 signs strictly because it is a safety issue. And stating that where I put my life in my own hands, taking an ambulance and driving out of Headley and nearly getting taken out. And at the same time, there's been a lot of infrastructure in regards to public works through the Upper Similkameen Indian Band, being able to have an area where there's a lot of pedestrians traveling that route. And it just seemed like it went on deaf ears and trying to get it. And now we're looking at the price has doubled and we're not going to see it until next year. I'm happy that we're going to see it. I'm very frustrated with the process, and you know, I almost feel that the taxpayer, I feel that taxpayers get gouged. You know, there's just no process. So again, that's my frustration, but again, I'm very happy to be able to provide it for our community. It's really well needed.
They are a good safety feature. Seeing no other discussion on this, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. Down to H2, another gas tax reserve expenditure, CAO.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to authorize the expenditure of $56,000 from Area F Community Works Gas Tax Reserve to conduct a feasibility study on constructing a joint water treatment facility with a Penticton Indian Band. The cost of the study will be jointly shared with the PIB. The RDOS portion of the expense is $56,000 and again funded from the gas tax if the board accepts that. Staff's here to answer questions, and the recommended motion is on the board.
Right, I'll go to Director Gettin's direction on this one.
I'll move the recommendation and I would like a seconder and then ask a question.
Okay, moved, seconded, it's on the floor.
I just
Go
wanted to
ahead.
confirm, I think this is a bit of a confusing one for citizens because it's a bit of a housekeeping matter. We've already moved forward with the feasibility study. I think, Lisa, you've got some thoughts on the feasibility study, so if you wouldn't mind, I wouldn't mind asking you some questions on that. So this is the same recommendation that we were told about by McElhaney. We have been presenting this recommendation, and the opportunity that's being explored is a jointly owned water treatment plant with PIB and possibly the city and the regional district. So they say if that's already in process, and this is just getting the bylaws approved by the board.
Over to staff.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
Chair. Yes, that's correct. This process was started several months back when the board first approved the project to move forward. And yeah, it's actually looking very positive, and we've got some really good options that are being explored by the consultant right now.
Thank you. And then just as a follow-up, what kind of information or what kind of timeline are we looking for this feasibility? And actually, can I just get clarity? Because I can hear some people are uncomfortable with this. So the feasibility study is looking at whether an option could be viable or a cost savings. It's not a commitment beyond that. It's just, should we continue looking into this a little bit further? Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it's just a feasibility to see if it's even a possibility.
So the other recommendation that was in the McElhaney report for water source or water treatment is a standalone water treatment plant. That's that $8.2 million. And that was going to be, and the recommendation there was just to have that fully funded by Sage Mesa ratepayers. That's what that means by standalone. This is different in a joint ownership and partnership. The understanding that a joint ownership and partnership would be less expensive if it were to go ahead and make sense.
Correct.
Okay. When do you think this feasibility study will be completed by?
We're hoping early in the new year.
Early in the year. And when would the information be available for citizens to know?
Once we've decided which way we're moving forward.
With the feasibility
Yes.
study? Okay, and what information is available? And then after the feasibility study with this potential option, what's the next phase?
The next phase would be working out an agreement with the Penticton Indian Band and moving towards further feasibility and pre-design.
Okay, and when do we start discussions with the city of Penticton?
We could do that at any time. I think once we have the feasibility study numbers and estimates and such, that would be a good time to look at the options and then basically decide which way to go.
Okay, and it's my understanding too that the city is also interested in this because it could also be a good regional program for the city to be partake in. I know I'm sitting right beside you. You're more than welcome to comment. So right now, this is all just discussion, looking at options and seeing what's best and then make some decisions later. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Director Coyne?
Yeah, I'd like to hopefully hear from somebody from the city of Penticton as to what, because I mean, I've read all the emails and whatever, and everybody seems to be concerned about the bulk water agreement and everything. So is that something that the city is looking to move away from? Is it the city looking to augment their water supply? What's the push, or what's the urgency behind all this so that everybody understands what's going on?
I can take that one if you like.
Director Getton?
yeah.
Go ahead.
So again, it's just an exploratory conversation right now. There is no impact to the bulk water agreement. That bulk water agreement is in place until 2037, at which time that bulk water agreement does need to be renegotiated with the city. This is a potential opportunity of an alternate water source. I think it's a good thing to have an alternate before you go and negotiate, and that's what this is about. There's no impact to the Greater West Bench bulk water agreement. It is not being canceled. No one's getting forced to do anything. It's just at a discussion. In 2037, we need to renegotiate these terms with the city, and they don't have any obligation to keep them the same.
Okay, follow up. Go ahead.
A question to staff. I guess is a multi-part. So have you guys identified a water source to date? And is it surface water or is it subsurface water?
Staff?
Thank you, Chair. It would be surface water.
Surface water. So is there no opportunity for a well anywhere to bring down costs on all this?
Not that would be productive enough, no.
Okay. So, Director Bloomfield, go ahead.
Thank you. And I can confirm very generally a couple of things from the city perspective is that they have been asked to do a study to see if the city has the capacity on the heavy load days to service other services, Sage Mesa being one of them. And staff are carrying out that study. And there has been discussion, very broad and loose discussion about a joint venture like this. And when the time comes, when we are formally asked to be in those discussions, then I think that's a time for certainly staff and council to make a decision on that. But there has been broad discussions up to now. The water agreement with the West Bench did have provisions for Sage Mesa, and the costs of those adding Sage Mesa to that water agreement are fairly well described in, I think it's Schedule D on that agreement. But whether Sage Mesa gets added on to the West Bench agreement is at the sole discretion of the city of Penticton. And so that's That's about as much as I've got for you today.
Okay, so the bottom line, this is just to keep our options or look and explore all options. So looking for a corporate vote on this. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. Down to H3, CEPF Volunteer and Composite Fire Department Equipment and Training Grant Application, CAO.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is for UBCM requires that the RDOS submit a joint application on behalf of the fire departments, and especially worded resolution is adopted by the board. The staff's here to answer any questions you may have, and the resolution's on screen.
Okay, direction on this one? Someone prepared to move it? Moved, seconder. Thank you. Question, Director Taylor, go ahead.
Just like clarification that if and when, or let's just say when, incorporation of OK Falls proceeds, its share of that would transfer to the municipality if the service was transferred.
Go to the CAO.
All bylaws, commitments that this board makes when OK Falls incorporates officially automatically move forward to OK Falls. Yes.
Okay, any other discussion on this? Not seeing any hands. Again, corporate, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. Down to legislative services, schedule of meetings, CAO.
Thank you. The purpose of this is to establish by resolution a schedule for the regular board and committee meetings for 2026 in accordance with the relative legislation and the RDOS procedure bylaw. The recommended motion is on the board as you see.
Okay, direction on this one? Director Monteith moving it. Thank you. Seconded. It's on the floor. Any discussion? Go ahead, Director Federico.
Thank you through the chair. I guess the only thing that popped up in there was FCM. So I know not typically everyone attends that, but just kind of get an idea of who is attending and whether we would be missing quite a few people.
I think as we get closer to that, if that becomes apparent, we can always move the date around. At this stage, it's sometimes early to say who's going to go or not. So we've got the motion on the floor. I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. Down to L2, signing authority. I don't know that we need to deal with this, but CAO?
Yeah, yes, we still do. So,
Okay.
Under Section 194 of the Local Government Act, provides by the governing body of the regional districts, it is a board of directors and has the powers, duties, and functions of regional districts are to be exercised and performed by the board unless this is any other act provides. Under Section 216 provides that the chair is the head and the chief executive officer of the regional district. So this is asking for the signing authority. It does have to be rubber stamped again, even though there was no change. The motion is on the screen as you see.
Okay, so mover, thank you. Seconder, perfect. It's on the floor. Director Taylor, question, go ahead.
Can you just clarify, it's two to sign, any two to sign, one to sign if it's under a certain limit, all four to sign if it's over a certain limit. Can you just go through that for me?
Where's my CFO? Oh, CFO?
Go ahead, Noel.
Thank you. Yes, we are a two to sign. It can be any two of the four that you see on the screen. So for any kind of banking or financing documents or anything like that, we are two to sign.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. Down to item L3 or I3, Skaha Estates Improvement District Conversion Service Establishment Bylaw, CAO.
Thank you. To facilitate transfer to the Skaha Estate Improvement District to the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen, this recommended motion must be adopted by the board. As it is, as you see on the screen, staff's here to answer questions.
Okay, Director Taylor, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm assuming you want to move this?
I'll have to think. Yes, I'd like to move the staff recommendation.
Mover, is there a seconder? Thank you. It's on the floor. Any discussion? Not seeing any hands. Call the question. Corporate vote. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. Down to I. No, we don't have any there. CAO reports. Go over to the CAO.
Thank you. And this is my report. So it's regarding the Sage Mesa Water Transfer Referendum. This report outlines the rationale for moving forward with the referendum now rather than waiting for the potential grant announcement. It emphasizes that a successful referendum could improve the project's eligibility for future funding and help address long-standing deficiencies in the water systems. One of the things that I decided to bring this report to the board now is at UBCM, we actually had meetings with the UBCM staff that actually make the decisions on who gets which grants. We applied for 3 $7 million grants. Very specifically, we asked what is the criteria that they use to establish who should be getting grants. One of the ones that they consider very high is risk. And so I asked them to define risk. And one of those is who owns the utility. And if for Sage Mesa, we don't own the utility. So for them, it is a high risk for it to go to the next step. Doesn't mean it's a no, but the risk is so high that if we were to be considered one of the other two $7 million applications that we applied, would have a better chance. And that's if we get any. So the idea recommendation is if we have the vote, the referendum before the announcement is made, we have a better chance of getting that money for a service that we don't currently have, but we will have it by the time the decision of who gets the grants are made. So it's to reduce the risk of not getting anything.
Okay. I'll go to Director Gettins. Direction on this one.
I think this is a tricky one because we've discussed this quite a bit about the amount of money that people are asking to consider, and then the lack of information they have on which to make that decision. So including the McElhaney report. And I know there's a lot of citizens in the neighborhood right now that are looking for some clarity and more information. And I get that. Like, I get why you need that to make this kind of a decision. I'm going to just give a little bit of background or a little bit of context too, because back in May, when we were first talking about this, and because the Sage Mesa water systems had this history with the province for 35 years, I really thought that we would be able to open that door and get some money from the province before we went to referendum. I really thought that because we've heard that there's either one more system or we are the only system. So I thought, you're not going to set a precedence. We know the province doesn't want it. Give us some money. This money will go away. It'll help amend the 35-year relationship you've had with the Sage Mesa ratepayers. Between myself and the staff, I'm not too sure how many minister meetings and follow-up meetings we've had, and we didn't get any money. And what we are told is that there's no legislative way for the province to give us any money ahead of the referendum. We have our MRLAs, we've had our water critic, like every stone that I think of that can be turned over to get money ahead of time didn't happen. So now we have this chance at this grant. And the grant is important because the problem with Sage Mesa and Greater West Bench is a lot of the grants that are going to come our way are going to be tied to densification and housing. If you hear from the federal government and you hear from the province, that's their aim. And they're going to use the money as a stick or a carrot to get us to densify. We can't. We're on a hazard land. So the reason this is coming to the board is I don't want to lose this opportunity for the grant or take any more risk around this grant. The other part of this is it's a 10-year agreement between the feds and the province. Excuse me, I need a sip of water. It's between the feds and the province. There may be another 2 to 4 cycles of this grant money. Like, that's as much commitment as they're going to get. So when this grant is over, it may be another 2 to 5 years until the next one. We don't know what the parameters of that grant will be. We know this one right now, we can do it even without densification, but we don't know what future parameters, and nor do we have any influence over it. So that is my concern and what I'm trying to balance, because I want to get you as much information as I can. I've just been on the email as well with James from Walrus, who was at our last meeting, saying, Lenny, you're going to let the ratepayers know what your plan is if this is a no, because it's going to be a no, I think. So tell them what they're going to do. And they're being really non-committal. You've all had a relationship with the province for the past 35 years. And this is, like this is what it is. I have no say over the province. I've got no sway over them. Before, when I thought there would be some money coming from the province, I was like, I don't know, like maybe you should stay with the province. Maybe they're going to help you get rid of this problem. I really think if they could have bought their way out of this the province would have. They don't want this. They don't want to operate it. They're not built to operate it. You're going to have a representative in Victoria making decisions about this, and it's going to continue to be duct taped and Band-Aid together. So that's the struggle that I'm having right now, is I know you want information. We've heard from Lisa, wherever she is, about, oh, sorry, hi, Lisa, about this feasibility study. There's some information there that might be helpful. Getting the conversation with the city, more information that might be helpful. I'll continue to ask the province to provide their information. But I guess my question is, and maybe Lisa, to put you on the spot, I don't know, but if we can get that information from the feasibility study and have some discussions with the city in and around or before April, like, is that a possibility? I've asked Walrus, is it a possibility to get us some rates by April? He will not commit to me, just so you know. It's all very provincial language, maybe this, maybe that, likely this, But from Lisa, do you think that's a possibility, or do you need like another month or two? And I'm going to ask because I'm balancing out getting that information and not risking this grant, because we don't know when the next grant cycle is going to come. And if it's a yes vote, the work starts. The work starts if it's a no vote. So I just want to ask you, Lisa, just really quickly on that. Do you think, is it reasonable to get some more information by April, or Alan, as you see going up there too?
Over to Lisa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All I can say is it's possible. I can't commit to actually having answers before April.
Okay. So thank you. So that's, anyways, board, honestly, this is what I'm trying to balance out. I don't want to risk this grant. I'm worried about the reservoir and the work that needs to be done. I worry about inadequate flow to hydrants. We have been knocking our socks off for you guys for this. We have been doing everything we can to get something. And now we're at this point where we have a referendum and we don't want to have the question because we want more information. And I just want to ask, because there's another question to consider. And I know the $33 million isn't insignificant, but it's also a question about, do you want to partner with the regional district or do you want to stay with the province? If you come with the regional district, there is opportunities for grants. You do have a local representative. Water systems that are ran by the RDOS are well-ran water systems. If you stay with the province, you've got to fund it on your own, and you've got to put the money forward ahead of time. Those are the other questions. We can get you all the information, but the borrowing of $33 million is over a 12-year timeline, and that's like a line of credit, and you have to take the money ahead over the 12 years. That's what it is. That's the question I'm trying to figure out.
So are we?
I'm just
making
looking
a
for
motion?
well, I'm just like, I've already made the motion. Or maybe I didn't make the motion.
No, we haven't
okay.
yet.
This is something that does it make sense to have the referendum go in June? Like, would an extra few months help getting some of that information from the city without risking? Will the extra 2 months increase risk on the grant? Those are the questions. And the thing is, none of us know. It's an arm's length review process for the grant. We're rolling the dice here. And that grant risk to me is real. Over to the board. I'm curious for conversation.
Okay, Director Coyne?
I mean, something you just said about, do you want a relationship with the board, with the regional district? Do you want a relationship with the province? And I think you nailed it. If it's the relationship with the regional district, we can apply for grants. If it's just a relationship with the province, you are going to pay, the ratepayers are going to pay 100% of this, and that's it. The province isn't coming to the table with any money. So, I mean, for that reason, I'll support, if you want to make the motion, I'll support it. Because the alternative right now is No, and I think really this application we have in the UBCM for this grant is not, without the referendum, without us owning it, I think our chances of getting this grant are very slim. There's going to be every municipality, every regional district is going to put in for the maximum amount. We've heard this time and time again. Every single grant has been overprescribed over and over and over again. And the more security we can offer, the better the chance of getting grants. But without that, I really do fear that the taxpayers or the ratepayers of that water system will be footing the entire bill. And I will say, I'm a little bit disappointed in the provincial government after receiving the report from McElhaney, especially knowing that the reservoir is in the state that it's in. I really wonder how they can allow a liability like that to exist. So if you're willing to make the motion, it's your community, so I'll leave it up to you. But I think you have my support moving forward. I think the sooner the better. I don't think we're going to get any more information. We have the report. We know what the situation is. We don't know what grants we're going to get because we don't own it. It's not ours to get grants on yet. Entering into conversations with the city of Penticton, they'd be very preliminary, right? City can't commit to something that we don't own either. So, I mean, we're talking hypotheticals everywhere. So I think the only way to move forward, one way or the other, is allow the ratepayers to have their say, whether it's yes or a no, and then we respect that.
Okay, Director Taylor, then Holmes.
Yep. If Director Gettens isn't ready to make the motion, that basically I am. I feel the board should make a decision on this. The real question is whether it's not about how much money, it's about whether Sage Mesa residents want the system run and managed, owned, so to speak, by RDOS, or
Use us, sir. It's nothing to do with the discussion here, to leave the board members finish their points.
It's not about how much, it's about who owns and manages the system. According to the engineers, that's the work that's required, whether it's owned by the province or whether it's owned by the regional district. That work or something similar is going to be done. We're prepared to do it as long as the owners are prepared to fund it. That's just like every other service that's out there. If we own and manage it, we'll do our best to get grants. We'll do our best to get loans. Those are things that the province can't do. So the owners, basically, I feel we need to make a decision so that then owners can make the ultimate decision. If they want us to own and manage it, great. We'll proceed under these conditions. We'll do our best to get the best bang for their buck and to minimize cost overall. If they want the province to do it and they're prepared to go without grants, prepared to go without loans, that's the other option. And the sooner, but they can't make that decision until we make this decision. So from my perspective, let's make our decision so we can get out of the way, and then the owners can decide which way they want to go.
Okay, Director Holmes.
Yeah, thank you. I think even if there was a legislative way to apply for a grant ahead of time, you still wouldn't get it because that's not the way government works. It's, we went through the same thing with our referendum for our rec center in Summerland. It was too expensive on its own. But we had grants applications in, and so people wanted to know, well, why don't we wait to hear from the grant about whether we got the grant or not before we went to referendum? Well, the funders are going to say, we're waiting for you to have your referendum before we tell you whether you get a grant or not. And over the years, I've talked to so many different mayors and elected officials across the province at UBCM, and everybody's told the same thing. If there's a referendum that's outstanding, you're not going to hear about a grant until that referendum has been called. And that's just the way it works. It's unfair. It's kind of a chicken and egg situation you're put in, but that's the way it works. So I think we don't really have a whole lot of choice, but we have to proceed with this referendum, or else we're just in limbo forever.
Okay. Director Federico and then Bloomfield.
Thank you, the chair. The situation is not unique to other communities. So in one of the emails that went around, it was alluded to how the Naramata water system was acquired. It was from the Naramata Irrigation District when a developer sued the community and the RD when certain decisions were made. That was something that the ratepayers had a one-time fee at that time. We're talking in 1995, was $4,000 per household upfront, or $1,000 on your taxes for the next 12 years. So local governments don't acquire systems that are either functioning well or that aren't in disrepair. The local government's here to kind of pick up the pieces, and I'll loosely say the mess that is left behind by others. So all of our communities, when we acquire these systems, is typically how that goes. You don't have someone handing a healthy system over to you. So I get where residents are coming from. Again, historically, residents in Area E have had to deal with that. Residents in Area D are dealing with it. All residents have had some form of situation that is similar to this. We're in an economy where everything is wildly expensive, and you say local government and that price tag triples. So while this cost is high, by the local government acquiring it and access to the municipal finance authority, your interest rates on that are far lower than they would be if you were to go on your own or a traditional lender or in a different perspective. So leveraging it as ownership under the local government will actually probably save you quite a bit in interest in the long run. You need drinking water. So unless you're going to drill your own well, which on an unstable side is probably not going to be the best way to go. And water, we're all in drought, so can't guarantee that a well is going to supply you with what you need either. So, I hear you. I get you. A lot of our residents in Area E, when they couldn't fund it, the community actually started the Naramata Fund Society, in which case if residents had some extra income, they could give it to this charity. And then that money was then given out to some residents who were in financial hardship, who couldn't actually afford to pay this Blackwell bill. So residents stepped up to help each other in that financial hardship. And our fund society is still around, where they do still get funding from community members to help other families that are in need or undue hardship. So that's where I stand on that.
Okay, Director Bloomfield.
Thank you. And I'd like to say a few words, because I said a few words a few weeks ago when this issue came up. And since we last discussed it at length around this table, yes, there's been a lot of conversations. There's been a lot of checking on facts and protocol and policies. And some of the basic messages that come out is you can't get an approval for a grant on a privately owned infrastructure right now. Governments don't give grants on private infrastructure, and this is still a privately owned system. It's however it's managed. It's managed by, or it's overseen by the government and by the provincial government, but it's privately owned. And I agree with the comments of the other directors around here. That the information that we've received is that if there needs to be a referendum, the referendum given the advice that we've had, needs to be for the worst case scenario. And it doesn't mean to say that that worst case scenario, that money gets spent. But the issue is that if we make a referendum for a lower amount, and then the costs, the work gets started, but then there's cost overruns, and then we have to go back to the users to get approval for those cost overruns. And if they don't approve them, then the regional district is on the hook for those cost overruns, which means that all the other taxpayers in the regional district are on the hook for those cost overruns. And that's why it has to be the worst case scenario. So, you know, it feels like it's unfair. It's unfair on all the other taxpayers in the regional district to have a referendum on an amount that is going to be potentially less than the actual cost. And that's the problem. It's the problem that we have to face. So do we go ahead and say yes to this referendum? I think we have to, given the information that I have received and the advice that I've had. It doesn't mean to say you have to accept it. It's a referendum. If you don't agree with the referendum, then vote against it. But in order to safeguard all the other taxpayers in the regional district, we have to put that question, that dollar amount on that referendum as of today's date. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on this? Director Gettens, are you?
Thank you. I appreciate the comments from the board. I want to also say that $33 million, you know that you've looked at the report and there's 3 phases of work. What has to happen? Then there's the water source question, whether hook up with the city or build your own Sage Mesa standalone system just paid for by Sage Mesa. Those are the 2 options in that report. The difference between those 2 options is a couple of $1 million. And then you have another phase of work that is anticipated for aging instruction and maintenance costs further down the road. What we have to do legislatively is provide in the referendum that worst case scenario, which is the worst option for Sage Mesa would be to build your very own water treatment plant. But we have to put that in there because that's in the engineering report. The worst option is no grants. That's why it's the full $33 million. Included in that $33 million is a 40% contingency. Every year that goes by, because that's $2024, every year that goes by in inflation, I'm sure that contingency window has to be closing. We just know the cost of things are getting more expensive. So we have to move forward on that. The 12-year window to borrow that $33 million, that's big. It was 5. It was 5, which meant at the end of 5 years, the whole $33 million had to be withdrawn if that's what the regional district thought they needed. Now it's like a line of credit for 12 years. We take it as we need it. If a grant comes along, then we don't take it. And then at the end of the 12 years is when we have to know, and they'll know. This staff knows that system because they're the ones waving the red flags about it. And I think it's, Jim, can you just clarify about when the staff have to come back for another update before the 12-year window closes?
So the goal is that before the 12 years over, we will have essentially a level C and maybe a B estimate. And we then would just borrow what that estimate is. And that will come to the board of that day. So the idea is to try to reduce that 33. We, again, as stated, in every case where we do a referendum, it's always the worst case scenario. But that does not mean that's going to happen. It's going to be, at the end of the day, whatever the actual cost is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone prepared to
I think we need
move this?
to keep our options open for this potential grant. We don't know when the next one's going to come. And we need to have a referendum in place and we need to get it done. So I'm going to move the administrative recommendation.
Moved, seconded. It's on the floor. Any further discussion? Director Monteith?
Thank you. Through the chair, I guess I'm looking to finance. I'm a bit confused about some of the statements about if there's a cost overrun that the entire regional district is liable, or is it just that service area? Because I know that when I've had services that have run over, that service has to pay that full overage before the service of the next year actually occurs. Is that correct? Because then it would just be the Sage Mesa residents that would have that overage, not the entire regional district.
Either CAO or Noel?
Yes, you are correct. Cost overruns would be borne by the service. However, I believe in this case, we're talking about the 33 million versus 18 million. And if the board, if the 18 million, the board chose to go with the 18 million, those additional costs, you know, that were seen, and then the residents did not approve another borrowing, that's the cost that potentially the whole RDOS would be. Does that make sense?
It's slightly different than what you're speaking of, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm just looking out for the other, everybody in the whole regional district. So how is it legal that others would be liable for something that's not in there? They haven't voted for it, like.
It's if we make a bad decision, we potentially create liability for our residents is what it boils down to. But CAO?
The crux of it is if the board says 33 million and the referendum passes and it goes over 33 million, which I hope we're not, then just those residents would pay, not everybody else.
Okay.
But as
Go,
a follow-up,
Director Gaffney.
what I think the confusion is, we've received an engineering report, and then engineering said the worst case scenario is $33 million. If this board puts forward a referendum question of $18 million and not the $33 million that the engineers have told us, and then it goes over that $18 million, what we're hearing from our CAO and the opinions is that then the rest of the region is liable to cover that, because as a board, we made the incorrect decision to not take the engineer's advice.
Yeah. I'm getting lots of hands here. Director Taylor and then Coyne.
I just want to reiterate, every service is paid for by the users in that service. There's no cross subsidy or anything. So we've got similar expensive work being done in Heritage Hills, Ska Estates, etc. Those are the residents that are paying for that work. Yeah.
Director Coyne and then Bloomfield.
Yeah, I'm just gonna try to clarify this. So if we put it out for 18 million or 10 million or whatever million you want it, and it turns out to be 33, it could be 40, whatever, and it goes back to referendum and the referendum fails because we have a engineered report that says this work needs to be done at X amount of dollars. If it fails and we only have half the job done, then the rest of the regional district becomes liable, not if there's an overrun at 33, because that's what the report says. There's a difference in what everybody's saying here, but if we put it out for 33, because we have to put it out at the worst case scenario, and there's cost overruns, then that is normal. We figure out how to increase taxes or do whatever you have to do to pay for that. But if we under request funds knowingly with a report that says X amount is what is required, then we become legally liable for that. And that's the problem. So that's why it is always at the worst case scenario, because then you're not cutting yourself short and putting yourself in a position of liability. And then everybody pays for that. Not everybody, like everybody. And the municipalities pay for it, the regional district pays for it, everybody pays for it, because we are all liable for the debt that the regional district holds. That's why we do it through a regional district. That's why municipalities have to get permission from a regional district to borrow funds, is because ultimately every resident in the regional district is liable for shortfalls like that.
Okay. Anything further, Director Bloomfield?
Thank you, Director Coyne. That was exactly what I was trying to say, and a little more clearly, made it a little more clear there. Could we just get the CEO's thoughts on what Director Coyne just said and if that's actually correct?
CAO?
I couldn't have said it better. In fact, I think I did say it. As long as you do the worst case scenario, that's not a board error. You've made the decision that the expert that you hired and we paid for, their recommendation was adopted.
Okay. Director Federico, and then I think we'll close it off there unless there's something new. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, the chair. We are asking for the worst case scenario for funding, but we do have a procurement process and we have a procurement manager. So after, depending on which way referendum goes, if it does land with the RDOS, then there is a process where it will go out to the world for bids. So pricing in there can come in different than what that higher 33. That's just so we, as a board, have leeway. And what our estimated costs are right now, but it will go through a competitive process with bids that come in that will reflect varying prices, in which case then we have a policy and a way that we look at who gets the job and that procurement process. So it's not necessarily the least amount that comes in, it's not necessarily the most that comes in. So we don't ultimately know what the end cost is going to be. This is just so that there is room and buffer to provide the services and the infrastructure that is needed for your community.
Okay. Not seeing any other hands, so I'm going to call the question. It is a corporate vote. And the motion is on the floor or on the screen there, April 11th, setting the referendum date for, and a maximum amount borrow $33 million. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? One is opposed, one Director Bush, but the motion carries. Anything further, CAO?
Yes. A while back, I said we don't really do a very good job celebrating wins. I want to introduce you to one of the staff members that works for the Public Works Manager, that Venus. So Venus has just obtained her professional engineering designation, and she's been working for us for 4 years.
Several. One with me for
1 year with this department and a number of years of planning. So she's now in an area where she can use her skills a little bit better. And I just wanted to celebrate this win.
Great.
And the last item is, and there he is, there was some request to have a service disruption policy notification. And Eric is here to discuss what his recommendation, and just a heads up on this. And this is my last part of the agenda.
Okay, over to Eric.
Thank you to the chair. This recommendation originally came from Director Taylor, and it was around a concern where there was a service disruption that lasted for several days. So the CAO has asked Communications and Engagement to put together a policy. So we're working on that right now. The idea is that the regional district would notify, regional district staff rather, would notify managing directors and also distribute a detailed information release if the RDOS experiences a service disruption lasting longer than 5 business days. So of course that notification would go out to the public, but also to the board of directors. And the idea is that if it's going to continue for some time, that we provide regular updates. Similar to in the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, when there is an ongoing situation, especially with an active evacuation order, people would like information whether there's no new information at all or not. They would just rather get an update. So that's the intent of this, is if it's going to last longer than 5 days, we'll provide an update. And then going forward, we'll continue to provide regular updates to provide that clarification on what the situation is for all involved, including, of course, the board.
Okay. Any questions, Director Taylor?
Yeah, just a comment. I'd like the board to be aware that, like, I think our utilities and other service managers do great work, but the board doesn't always become aware where a system is not functioning. And the feedback loop is through Facebook, through the community, through phone calls, emails of concern. I think in this, my scenario, we wound up well into the second week with water that was, you know, pretty ugly. I really give full marks to utilities for getting the notice out at the first that, you know, everybody's got to do boil water. But once you're into the second week in a community that's not normally on a boil water order, I think they're entitled to know why, how long it's going to last, you know, that kind of information. I don't really see that that's engineering's or utilities' responsibility. I think it's comms. And so, you know, I don't know if we need a motion, if staff are actually going to be doing this. If you've agreed that you're going to do that, then that's great. I'll withdraw my notice of motion if staff are already acting on it. But I do want the board to be aware that at the moment, we don't have anything like that. And you can wind up with users going a considerable period of time without a service, or with a service that's well below what they're used to. And without getting any information, and I think our users are entitled to be informed.
Okay, Director Roberts.
Thank you, through the chair. And to follow up on the point from Director Taylor, had some similar frustrations in regards to the Olalla water system. Information was provided and in great detail, but it was almost like I went to the opposite end. Initially didn't have the updates, you know, asked for them, then got the updates, but then when the updates did come, they almost needed to be put through comms, were brought down to a manner where it didn't need to have the information translated, because I even, you know, got confused with the information that was coming through and thought there was a win when there wasn't. And so, you know, I think that the consistency through a communications process, I think, is very handy. And as Director Taylor said, nothing but accolades in regards to the technicians and the people running the water system. It was just more streamlining the communication and the type of communication, because the amount of conspiracy theories that I have to deal with on a regular basis, you know, becomes quite challenging. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other hands there. Thank you, Eric, for that update. Is there, oh, another hand online. Sorry, didn't see it. Director Coyne.
Yeah, no, we've had just exactly the opposite experience at Missoula Lake. Whoever puts those out, the notices when we have issues out there, have been just doing one heck of a bang up job, and they're very clear what's going on, and they've been awesome. So anyways, that's it.
Okay. So we'll make sure it happens regularly then. That's the goal. Thank you. Anything further, CAO or Eric?
Nothing further.
Okay, moving down in the agenda, verbal updates. Where are we? Nothing to report from the chair right now. Director's motions. Any director's motions? Not seeing any hands there. Board members' verbal updates. Anything? Go ahead, Director Holmes.
Yeah, I'd just like to say tomorrow is a big day in Summerland. We're having the groundbreaking for the regional food hub, food and innovation hub. It's been a long time coming, and it'll be great if any of directors can come. The RDOS did provide support a few years back with a grant and aid and to help us do the business plan at that time. It's just amazing how the region has pulled together to see this come through, and provincial support for sure. So it's going to be great for the region and for our agricultural producers and processors. Hope to see you there.
Good news. Any other verbal updates from your communities? Not seeing any. Am I pointing that? Oh, sorry again, Director Coyne. Go ahead.
You're on there, yeah. Yeah, the staff had the pop-up office out in Eastgate last week, and I understand that there was 27 people attended it. And I've heard nothing but accolades from it. Everybody went there, was very supportive, and kudos to Jim and Eric and the crew that were there. It was very well done. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for that. Anything else? Not seeing any motion. Is there anything coming out of camera that we need to deal with? CO, nothing. So motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded. Thank you. All in favor? Great. Any opposed? We are adjourned and we'll go straight to the hospital district elections, I think. Back to the Miss Batten.
Just to be, I'm just waiting till it turns 11. Just one moment. Here earlier. So the process is the corporate officer will declare nominations open for the position of chair. Will declare nominations open for the position of chair of the Okanagan-Similkameen Regional Hospital District. Each nomination will require one nominator. The member nominated will be asked if they're willing to let their name stand for the position. The corporate officer will call for additional nominations until, after 3 calls, there are no further nominations from the floor. Once nominations close, nominees will be allowed up to 3 minutes to present their platform to the board in order of nomination. Each member shall have 1 vote, each vote to have equal weight. And as I mentioned in the RDOS meeting, we do have some members online who I have arranged with to cast their ballots once they let me know who they wish to cast their ballots for. A simple majority of the board of directors is required to elect the chair, should there be more than 2 nominees for the position, and if on the first ballot a chair is not elected by the majority of the board, the nominee with the lowest number of votes shall be dropped, and a second ballot will be initiated. This process will continue until a member is elected. In the event of a tie vote on the last ballot, the election shall be determined by the flip of a coin. Following the vote, the corporate officer will announce the name of the chair resulting from the secret ballot, and unsuccessful candidates for chair are eligible to stand for vice chair if nominated. Following the election of the chair, the corporate officer shall conduct the election of vice chair with the same rules as applied to elect a chair. Following the election of a vice chair, the corporate officer shall turn the meeting over to the chair to proceed with the remainder of the agenda. Nominations are now open for the position of Okanagan-Similkameen Regional Hospital District Chair.
I'd like to nominate Director Johansson.
Director Johansson, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Are there any further nominations? For a second time, I will ask if there's any further nominations for the position of chair of the OSRHD. And for a third and final time, I will ask if there are any further nominations for the position of chair of the Okanagan-Similkameen Regional Hospital District. There being none, you have elected your chair by acclamation. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so nominations are now open for the position of vice chair for the Okanagan-Similkameen Regional Hospital District. Director Bush?
Yeah, I'll nominate Director Roberts.
Director Roberts, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do.
Are there any further nominations for the position of vice chair? I'll ask a second time. Are there any further nominations for the position of vice chair of the OSRHD? And for a third and final time, are there any nominations for the position of vice chair of the Okanagan-Similkameen Regional Hospital District? Seeing none, you have elected your vice chair by acclamation. Congratulations. Now I'll turn the meeting over.
Thank you. Look for a motion to adopt the agenda as circulated. Moved second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. We have some minutes to adopt. The September 18th, 2025 minutes of the Okanagan-Similkameen Regional Hospital District be adopted. Moved second. Any further discussion on those minutes? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. The next is about the OSRHD schedule of meetings for 2026. These mirror the meetings that were adopted for the RDOS. So no changes, I think, are required. I'll look for a recommendation, a mover of the recommendation that the 2026 Okanagan-Similkameen Regional Hospital District Board schedule of meetings as attached to the November 6, 2025 report be approved. Moved. Second. There's no other comments on that schedule. I will call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And our final bit of business is the Okanagan-Similkameen Regional Hospital District Signing Authority Corporate Officer.
Thank you. So as stated by the chair, pursuant to Section 17 of the Hospital District Act, the board by resolution must appoint the signing authorities for the hospital district. And they stated the chair, vice chair, the CAO, and the CFO are the four that are being requested.
Yep. Moved. Seconded. I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And look for a motion to adjourn. Moved. Second. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Hey, thank you and congrats. Over to Community Services and turning it over to Director Monteith.
Thank you. I'd like to call for a motion to adopt the agenda for the Community Service Committee. First, second, all in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item B, Consultant Tammy Rothery. Over to the CAO, please.
Thank you. As part of the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen commitment to the BC Climate Action Charter signed in 2007, signatories made a commitment to create a complete, compact, and energy-efficient community. With this in mind and supported by the local government climate action program funding, the RDOS and City of Penticton co-funded a study to identify a path to develop a residential building retrofit. Staff is here, I believe, with a presentation and answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for the opportunity to join you today. We're pleased to present highlights from the RDOS Residential Retrofit Program study developed in collaboration with the Community Energy Association, project co-funder the City of Penticton and other regional municipal partners. This report evaluates regional home retrofit readiness, identifies key barriers such as upfront costs and contractor availability, and proposes a concierge model to support residents through the upgrade process. As covered by the CAO, this initiative builds on RDOS's commitment to corporate and community energy efficiency, which began with our signing of the BC Climate Action Charter in 2007. Since then, the RDOS has advanced a range of energy-focused programs and policies, including corporate facility upgrades, community workshops on supporting the building of energy-efficient homes. The retrofit program represents a critical next step in helping RDOS residents reduce energy use, lower utility bills, and improve home resilience. Today, we'll walk through the key findings and implementation strategy and how this program aligns with provincial and federal retrofit funding programs. So leading today's presentation is Tammy Rothery, the Director of Built Environment Initiatives at the Community Energy Association, who has played a central role in shaping this work with her team, and she will guide us through the report and its recommendations.
Great. Thank you for that introduction, and hello to the chair and the board. It's so nice to be with you today. Just while my slides get put up here, I'll do a quick introduction to myself and the Community Energy Association, who some of you may not be familiar with. We are a not-for-profit organization that has been around for almost 30 years. We were originally conceived as a support for local governments through the province that eventually spun off into our own charitable organization. And so today we work across Canada, primarily in BC and Alberta, to support local governments and Indigenous communities with advancing climate action. Some of the ways that we do that are through planning and program implementation, And we also run a number of peer networks for staff and elected officials. Okay, they're coming. Great. Oh, just keep it on. Okay. Thanks, getting used to the tech. So for this study, the RDOS engaged CEA to help them understand the opportunities and barriers to home energy retrofit study or opportunities in the communities. So what did we find? There we go. So as mentioned, the regional district has already committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2050. And residential buildings account for the largest share of both energy and expenditures as it relates to your impacts on the community. And so meeting the target that's been set out will require significant reductions in the energy use of existing homes, as well as planning for high performance building in new buildings that are being planned in the communities. There is an opportunity for the RDOS to support homeowners with moving forward with these energy efficiency improvements, and that has a wide range of benefits for the property owners, from health and comfort of their home to the value of their home when they go to resell it, and of course the impacts of the materials that are used in our homes and the fuels that we use to heat our air and water. So when we looked at the RDOS specifically, we saw that annually, the historical number of homes that have had any type of energy upgrade is around 605 per year. And in order to reach the targets, the number required is about 1,500, so leaving a gap of 900. And specifically, when we look at the highest impact measures that would be required, in this case, heat pumps, the gap is quite significant. So the number of homes that have had heat pumps installed historically is around 85 per year, and the target would need to be closer to 1,000. So there's a significant gap there. And the opportunity for the RDOS to move forward towards the target will require supports for homeowners and for local contractors to be able to meet the targets and close this gap. Specifically, when we looked at what the readiness of the different stakeholders were, we found that there was a mix across the different stakeholder groups. So looking at the local governments within the RDOS, we found that they are generally supportive of this type of programming, but may not be ready to fully implement. We did find that there's industry support for a regional retrofit program, and we know that this is particularly motivating for local contractors to have a program that they can rely on, that they know is steady, that they can count on for supporting their customers moving forward. But we do know that their overall capacity remains a challenge, particularly in rural areas, and specifically within what we call the building envelope sector, so windows, doors, and insulation. There's just not enough contractors locally. So in order to ensure a successful program across the region, the following factors must be addressed. There has to be political and municipal buy-in to the program. There needs to be more staff capacity, both within the RDOS and its member municipalities. Financial resources have to be dedicated, and communications and community engagement capacity needs to increase. And of course, that industry readiness that I mentioned has to be considered. So when we looked at the specific needs and how this could be moved forward, for the RDOS, we identified, as I mentioned before, that there needs to be an increase in retrofits to meet the targets, and that there needs to be a sustainable economic development model that the contractors can rely on in order to increase their retrofit activity. For homeowners, they need support. The number of different programs and rebates and options that contractors bring forward to them is complex and confusing. And CEA, through our work across the province and through our own concierge program, Retrofit Assist, knows that that one-on-one support can make a significant difference in a homeowner's ability to move forward with their retrofit projects. And part of that support includes a customized plan of action to move forward, looking at their own specific needs and finances. As far as the industry, as I mentioned, that stability and capacity are both really important and can be addressed through a regional retrofit program. So what are the barriers? Financial, of course. The cost of home energy retrofits for many homeowners is a barrier, especially those with low income or that are suffering from energy poverty. And it can be really complex for them to navigate what the best first steps are and to find suitable financing that doesn't make them choose between putting food on the table and reducing their energy bills. Knowledge and awareness needs to increase because this can be a significant barrier, as I mentioned. Many different contractors will come forward with different options that may use terminology that homeowners don't understand or that can be wildly different, and it can be difficult to understand as a homeowner what the building science that's driving those differences is. And then industry capacity can be a problem. Within the RDOS specifically, there's a lack of contractors that are registered with the Home Performance Contractor Network, which is a requirement for the homeowners they serve to qualify for rebates through Clean BC. So our recommendations are for the RDOS to explore an in-house energy concierge program, which includes research and training for staff so that they can be up to speed on the ever-changing rebate and retrofit market, including participant support, helping them to look at things like quotes and understanding those differences I mentioned. Engaging with the contractors, this is a key part that I can't understate how important from our research and experience engaging with local contractors is to success of a program. And then of course the communications and marketing. We're also recommending that this financing be explored in order to support homeowners, particularly in those low income groups that I mentioned. And so the City of Penticton should continue to operate its on-bill financing program, HELP. It's a very unique and special program that gives it a lot of advantages. And so we're recommending that that continues, and that the remaining municipalities and electoral areas should consider what we call third-party financing, which is essentially partnering with a local credit union or other loan provider to offer preferential rates to people who may participate in their retrofits. And finally, we should also always be promoting a range of options to participants, but not rely on other things that exist in the market as the sole financing option. And so we're estimating that annually, the program recommendations would mean that additional 50 people would be moving through the program, and that would have an impact of 13 jobs being created locally and about 43 tons of CO2 equivalent reductions in emissions. So the next steps are to review the detailed program considerations that CEA provided and sort out exactly what options the city or the district would like to move forward with in terms of the different levels of participant support that we've outlined as options, and then using those decisions to quantify exactly how much staff and budget would be required and bring that forward for consideration. In conjunction with that, we're also recommending engaging with the municipalities and First Nations further to the work that we've started, external funders to see what can be done to bring in grant funding to support this work, and engaging with groups like the Youth Climate Corps and local post-secondaries to see about collaboration, which we've seen be very successful in other communities across the province. And finally, as I mentioned, look at that partnership with a local financial institution to incorporate third-party financing into the program. That's a quick overview and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Director Gilbert.
Yeah, thanks through the chair and thanks for the presentation. I think too, an add-on to that list for the RDOS is the city of Penticton, put in a, what do you call it, support for the BC Youth Climate Corps. And so the BC Youth Climate Corps has been contracted by the District of Squamish to work with contractors to retrofit a lot of homes out there and to seal it up. And they get a grant from the provincial government to help employ youth in that district to help retrofit. So I think that's probably a good option to put on here, as well as looking at that. The federal government, even though they're backsliding on their own climate initiatives, have put the Youth Climate Corps in the budget as well to be funded through grants. So I think there's an opportunity to look to get some youth working in the regional district to help with retrofitting.
Any comments from staff?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, great point. And that was a key consideration for this project, was to explore those opportunities to look at some of those low-hanging fruit that doesn't require qualified contractors to support. So the plan would be to integrate that as much as possible.
Thank you. Director Holmes?
Thank you. Nice to see you, Tammy. So for the financial, when you're talking about partnering with third-party financing, credit unions, whatever, are you speaking of like PACE financing? And here in Summerland, we can do, and we've talked about doing what Penticton does, but because we own our own electrical utility. But for everybody else who doesn't have their own electrical utility, aren't we still waiting for that enabling legislation from the province to allow us to do that?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. So just to quickly distinguish, PACE financing is, as you mentioned, not currently enabled through legislation in BC. However, there are some communities that have taken a sort of sidestep route to that and done local improvement bylaws for each and every property. That is not our recommendation here. So what we're suggesting is instead working with a local credit union where a customer would go directly to that financial institution and receive a loan, but it has a preferential rate associated with it because they're part of the program, rather than if they just walked in off the street.
Thank you. Director Coyne?
Can I follow up on that? And are there examples of local governments who have done that? And credit unions who kind of do that? Yeah.
Through the chair, yes, we have seen that be successful across Canada in several jurisdictions. And there's a number of different credit unions that CEA and other concierge programs like ourselves have relationships with that we would broker with the RD or other organizations who might be looking at.
Thank you. Director Coyne?
So energy. Some of our communities are facing some massive energy shortfalls, and I mean, it's all great and to say let's do this stuff, but I mean, the increased costs to running some of these programs at your home are ridiculous. Not to mention the fact that communities like Princeton, we can't even hook things up to our grid if it's over a certain size. So, we start adding more and more, and then we talk about Fortis, cutting our power off and whatnot. I just don't see this right now as something that, I mean, maybe in Penticton and Summerland where they have their own utility, but the rest of us, we're at the mercy of Fortis. And I mean, OK Falls has seen some of the similar problems we've had with energy restraints. Kelowna's seeing this. And as we electrify even more, those of us on the peripherals are really getting it handed to us right now. So I'm having a struggle with this, and I'm also having a struggle, with some of the step code stuff and all that, because the increased cost to run the fans and everything else. I know one guy, it was $400 a month to be up to snuff with everything, which is not a, something to balk at. So I'm struggling with all this. I'm struggling with the fact that we're trying to build better, but I'll tell you, our grandparents lived in homes that were cool in the summer and warm in the winter, and they didn't have air conditioning and they didn't have all these fancy things. And I'm really having a hard time with more heat pumps, especially in climates like mine that don't work. And we have them and they don't work. We still have to have a boiler system to back it up, and we have to have, wood heat to back it up because it just doesn't cut it when it's minus 35.
Please.
Through the chair, thank you for that insight, and I think it's really critical to have that understanding of this not in isolation from the energy conversation, and we'd be looking to work hand in hand with Fortis BC, who are the main electrical utility outside of the city of Penticton and Summerland, to look at those ways to not necessarily impose a grid burden to that point, but also look from the perspective of what is the totality of these upgrades to ensure that bills aren't going up. That $400 you mentioned, I think that's really critical to ensure that this is done in a way that ensures that we're not adding more burden to the grid and to the residents.
Director Taylor.
Yeah, I guess appreciate the presentation. From the regional district perspective, I'm struggling to see what our role would be, and at the moment I'm not seeing it, but maybe we'll have opportunity at a later date to get more info.
Do you have a follow-up or?
Yeah, I'll just add to that. Yeah, so the plan with this essentially was to share the outcome of the report. There is some conversations to be presented in the upcoming budget to present the opportunity for the board to consider for the concierge person, and that person would really just hold the hand of residents through these processes, guide them through the complexity of upgrades to their home, but also link them with some strong funding programs that ensure that some of these, particularly for low-income people, some of these upgrades can be done at minimal cost.
You have a follow-up?
So thanks for that additional information does help. I guess I'm still wondering if it's appropriate for us to have a concierge. I could see us advocating for greater assistance from the feds or the province for loan guarantees or actual grant programs. I'd personally rank that higher than a concierge.
That sounds like a budget debate. Director Taylor, or sorry, Director Roberts.
Yeah, thank you, the chair. Follow up in regards to Director Coyne, I was going to say some of the same things, quite similar. And being an individual where my family sits as a single income family, and I'm by no means I don't consider myself poor by any means. But what I've ran into, whether or not, like I'd like to have a gas furnace, I can't have that. Everything's leaning towards for the electric heat pumps. I get to the electric heat pump, what's going to work for my house is $30,000. And the salesman shows you that you're going to get so many rebates. And then when I look into the rebates, it's like, wait a minute, I'm not going to get any of those. I don't meet any of those standards. And at the same time, your insurance agents, even though I got a perfectly good roof, tells me they will not insure my roof just because of it's an age thing, not its function. So the cost, as we're stated, whether or not it's the step code, whether or not it's trying to fire safe and have issues in regards to the materials that you put on your home, it's out of reach for most. And so the things that we can do to provide, as Director Taylor said, connections to federal and provincial supports in regards to dealing with income. Because again, you don't have to be at the bottom of the income rate to struggle with these things, because all it takes is one of your systems to fail. And rurally, a lot of us are dealing with, septic systems and as Director Coyne stated, people wanting to turn off our power. So it's a part of me saying, well, darn it, I want to drill my own well, and I want to have my own windmill and a backup generator, because you're beholden to so many other agencies and issues that are outside of your control, but the cost keeps on growing. But again, I appreciate all that you're doing, and I appreciate your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Bush?
Yeah, so I have a friend who lives up in the mountains, and she has a heat pump which was put in years ago, and then she was looking at replacing it, and it's $33,000. But the kicker was she had to get rid of her wood stove before she could get a grant. Well, you can't live in the mountains without a wood stove. I'm sorry, you just can't. You lose your power. You have no other heat. The heat pumps, you need assistance for the extra heat, you know, at the times when it's like minus 35 or whatever. It just doesn't work in all places.
Staff.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I think great insights, and coming from someone who's recently done a retrofit single income family, looking at the perspective of having that backup, we have a backup gas for those days that just don't the heat pump can't keep up. One of the considerations and something that I would like to see the program focus on is focusing on the envelope, because we're living in leaky boxes. So whether it's a wood stove or a gas furnace or a heat pump, making sure that those envelope pieces are considered. And I think that's really where I'd like to see the focus on that. And that's actually the most expensive component of the retrofit, is the windows, doors, insulation piece. So I think that's something I'd like to put a focus on as if this program does proceed.
Thank you. Director Coyne.
Yeah, this will be my last comment or question. When you're working on this stuff, because we live in Fortis land, we don't get the same rebates and the same opportunities that the people in BC Hydro land do. And I think it's important that we fight for those, because there's no incentives for us to do solar. There's no incentives for half of the things that you can do in BC Hydro or with BC Hydro. And I mean, I hear it from my council all the time. Every time we meet with somebody who's like, might have an ear in Victoria, they're like, why can't we have the same opportunities that BC Hydro has? We see it on TV all the time, and then you go to do it, and Fortis is like, no, not for you. And it's frustrating, because there's things that we can do, these incremental things that will offset, you know, whether our energy demand or whatever, but they're not there for us. And I think as a region, and as a region that sits within Fortis's territory, I think it's very important that we fight for those things, and we start putting pressure on Victoria and Fortis to start matching what their competitor is doing. Because, and you know, you talk to the province, they're like, well, they're private utility, we can't do anything about it. Yeah, well, they're also the regulator, so let's regulate some of this stuff and make it even. So anyways, that's all I got.
Sounds like a UBCM motion resolution. No?
Don't send anything to them.
Any other questions for the presentation? All right, thank you guys very much for the presentation. Very informational. Any other business? Nope. Okay, looking for a motion to end the meeting. First, second, all in favor? Thank you. Over to the chair.
No, I just appreciate everybody attending today, and thanks for their support, and for those that stayed on in their positions. Hope next year works out well. And it's our final year.